Hi friends, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. One of the things that most people don't understand about police interrogations is that they are not obligated to tell you the truth. They're not obligated to give you any assistance. If you ask a question about a lawyer, that's just a question. It's not a request for a lawyer. And there are a lot of things that you can do in the course of an interrogation that winds up hurting your case. So the first thing they do when they want to basically get someone to confess to something is they detain them. They tell them that they are not free to leave. They read them their Miranda rights. Now, the Miranda rights are very clear and they are pretty simple when you get right down to it. You don't have to say anything and you can have a lawyer, and the police can't question you without a lawyer if you tell them you don't want them to, right? The problem is most people are good people. Even people who have committed a crime, for the most part, are good people. And so they tend to believe that the police are going to do the right thing, that they're trustworthy, and all of that. Now, what they don't understand is how compelling that interview process can be, how the compulsion to speak arises in the first place. Like I said, first they isolate you in a room, and usually they will leave you in there by yourself for an hour. Now, whether we want to admit it or not, with the exception of a few truly antisocial people, we are all social critters. And we enjoy being in the company of others, and we don't mind talking with other people. In fact, most of us crave it. We enjoy the opportunity that comes to share things that concern us. Interrogators know this. They understand the psychology much better, I think, in many cases than even board-certified psychiatrists do. And as a result of understanding the psychology, they understand that there's a lot of value in putting somebody in a room all by themselves, alone, and not sending anybody in to talk to them until they start banging on the door saying they have to go to the bathroom. And a lot of times, even after that, they will still leave them alone for 35 to 45 minutes after that, just to, again, let them get used to not being in the company of other people. Such that when they sit down, they go through this Miranda dance. You know, these are your Miranda rights. If you have any questions, are you going to agree to talk to us? And here is where people really get this wrong. They might say something like, well, I don't really have money for an attorney. You said if I couldn't afford one could be appointed for me. How long does that take? Because, I've got other things I've got to do today. I've already been here for over 2 hours. I've got stuff I got to do. How long is that going to take?
And Miss Gutierrez-Reed is then in the corner on the opposite end of that table, correct?
Yes.
Now, do you remember she mentioned at the start that something about maybe she should talk to a lawyer?
Yes.
And you all told her that, or not you, but do you remember hearing Talamonte tell her that it might be a public defender and it might take all night?
Yes, something to that extent.
It takes us a while to get a hold of the people at the public defender's office who are in the building next door and who are probably sitting around with their feet propped up on the desk. They don't tell them the whole story. One of the things that I frequently tell concealed carriers, people who carry a firearm for personal protection, is that they need to have the name and number of an attorney that they know, that they can talk to, that they can get involved with if there is indeed a problem. And for that reason, the reason that's so important is because the police then can't use the delaying tactic of saying, well, we'll have to see if we can get you a public defender over here. Or, I'll show you the phone book and you can pick one of these lawyers if you want. Of course, now that I think of it, there's not a lot of phone books around anymore because everybody uses the internet. To make a long story short, you want to have somebody that you know on your phone in the event that you ever need them. That's why I always tell people they should have a personal attorney. Because even if the personal attorney is not a criminal attorney, maybe it's the guy who drafts your will, he knows enough to come in and say, don't question my client unless we have a lawyer there. Everybody out of the room. I'm going to talk to my client. Be that as it may, I think it is very important for people to understand, like I said, how sort of unfair this process is. So then when you get into asking the questions, or they get into asking the questions, they will ask a question that suggests the answer. In the case of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, you left the ammunition on the cart, didn't you? So it makes it sound like she's the only person who had access to that cart and only person who dealt with the ammunition. And if you are not paying attention to the question, then you're liable to answer that question wrong. That's why an attorney is there. An attorney steps says, whoa, wait a minute. Are you talking about when? When in time are you talking about this? Because that cart was out there for a long time. A lot of other people had access to it. What do you know? I mean, what are you saying here? That's what an attorney does for you. They will interrupt the flow of the questioner, and they will prevent you from, hopefully, making mistakes that can't be fixed. Now, here is another thing that attorneys do, or prosecutors do, particularly, and police interrogators, when they want an answer to a question. They will ask a simple yes or no question, and then wait. It'll be like, you put the ammunition in the gun, didn't you? And the answer will be, well, yeah, I did. And then the police officer will look at them. And they will do that head movement and eye movement. And they will communicate without ever leaving a scrap of information on the transcript. Hey, come on, dish, I need more. So that it sounds like it's a voluntary response to a question. Yes, and then there'll be a long drawn out pause, and then they will continue to spew facts. You don't want to do that. One of the things I always tell people about depositions, and it could be applied just as readily to police interrogations, is you answer only the question that's asked. So if the question is, how did you get to the police station today? The answer could be, I drove. If they want to know what car, if they want to know what route you took, those are all separate questions. So again, shortest possible answer you can. I also tell them, if you have to take a breath to answer a question, you are talking too much. You answer questions in the fewest words possible. So yes and no questions, you answer yes and no, and you don't elaborate. People are uncomfortable with silence. It creeps them out. And as a result, when somebody does that head turn thing and, acts like, would you please just keep on telling me what you're going to tell me, a lot of them will feel very uncomfortable and they don't like the silence. The silence goes on for too long, and then, I was the gunman on the grassy knoll. That kind of thing. You have to you have to understand what the psychology is and how it is being used against you in order to understand that you answer a question, and when you've answered the question, you shut up. Sometimes questions are like, tell me what happened that day. A good attorney will say, when? When do you want to know? What time are you asking about? Well, the whole day. Well, we're not here to tell you what happened the whole day. If you have questions about some event, you ask those questions. And that's what attorneys do for you in the process of an interrogation. And usually they so frustrate the interrogator that it makes the interrogation almost worthless when you get into court.
Public defender, and it might take all night?
Yes, something to that extent.
Okay, so with that statement was made to her with her asking how long a lawyer would take to get, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And then do you recall hearing that you all told her it was just going to be a few basic questions?
I did not make that statement, no, but I believe Hannah's response was that she was willing to answer a few basic questions.
Okay, and with that, she signed her Miranda waiver.
Yes.
A waiver of her Miranda rights, is that right?
Yes.
So you felt it was okay for her to do that, even in the distraught state that she was in, whereby you thought she might even hurt herself, possibly.
I don't believe I said anything about her wanting to hurt herself. Just that obviously we take care of the well-being of people.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
No, that's it. You answered it. Now, during this first interview, you did not tell Miss Gutierrez-Reed that Helena had passed, did you?
No, I didn't even know that Miss Hutchins had passed away until essentially right before I told Mr. Baldwin.
Okay. So you didn't know at that time either?
I did not know.
Okay. Now, during the course of that interview, I think you stated actually at the end of the second interview that when people have undergone a traumatic event, sometimes they can say unusual thing. I can't remember the exact words you used.
Yeah, something about their perception or recollection after something like that could be, I guess, misinterpreted in a way.
Okay.
Now, it's worth noting that the issue here was that she was distraught. In fact, he went over that with this witness at some length.
Okay. In any event, she's in Mr. Benavides' car, and you're walking Miss Gutierrez-Reed to the bathroom.
Yes, sir.
And, ma'am, we saw that you went inside the bathroom with Miss Gutierrez-Reed, correct?
That is correct.
And one of the reasons you did that was you said that you felt like she might harm herself.
No, I didn't say that I felt like she was going to. It's just typical for us, especially because she had requested me to go with her. At the end of the day, my concern is, on that day, my concern is her well-being. She was obviously very distraught at that time. I wanted to make sure that she wasn't going to have some sort of medical episode or something happen in the bathroom where I would have to step in at that point.
Is anybody else bothered by the Miss Piggy hair? She keeps flipping her head around. That drives me nuts. And half the time it's over one of her eyes, so she's only looking with one eye. And of course, this is me saying this because I only look with one eye. It's odd how you can pick up on people's mannerisms and they kind of annoy you. But as you could see, she admitted that Hannah was very distraught. And so they happily took advantage of that. The process of an interrogation is such that it is designed to get answers to questions they already know the answers to and to fill in the narrative that they want to create. If the narrative is you were negligent and you screwed up and you got this person killed, the questions are going to be oriented toward that goal. Get that person to admit, yeah, it was my screw up. Well, imagine you've just seen somebody that you've known and that you've worked with on this set, and all of a sudden she's been shot through the chest and is dying. You weren't there, you didn't see it, but you know that she's in deep doo-doo here. And that's pretty traumatizing. I mean, it's the kind of thing that causes your limbic system in the brain to just go haywire, because it's very easy to talk about people like that as friends and experience angst and trauma and all of that, and police absolutely use that against you. They use your normal hormonal responses against you to help you create a fractured timeline so that they can later claim that you actually more or less invented this whole timeline. So you have to be very careful. And you absolutely should never talk to a police department, to an interrogator, to a detective, to a prosecuting attorney, anyone like that, without an attorney present. Now, I know what you're thinking, because I used to think this too. If I didn't do anything wrong, then I don't have anything to fear. I can tell the truth, and the truth will set me free. Not necessarily. There are a lot of people who spent a lot of time in jails because they thought the truth would set them free, and it did not. Because again, it is less a case of what the facts are than what the narrative will be at trial, And that starts being crafted from the very first moment that a police officer shows up on the scene. And again, I'm not suggesting that police officers are our enemies or that they don't do vital work or that they're not good people. I'm just telling you how interrogations operate. When this happens to somebody who robbed a liquor store, shot a convenience store clerk, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for that person, but the process is supposed to be a great deal more fair than it is. And that's what the attorney is making the point of here. Now the question is, why is he making this point? And the reason is pretty clear. He wants to get the jury on his client's side. Yeah, she said a lot of things, but she was under a great deal of stress. She was traumatized. We all say things we don't mean. You can see this feeding into the closing argument in this trial. So again, this is something that I think everybody needs to understand about police interrogations. If you find yourself in one, the only appropriate response is lawyer. I want a lawyer. Yes, I have means to pay for a lawyer and I'll hire one. Or no, I don't have means to pay for a lawyer, you get me one. That'll take a while. I'll wait. And then the lawyer gets there, and the first thing the lawyer does, he may not have time to take your whole case history and know what's going on, so he's going to say, don't talk to anybody. Absolutely keep your mouth shut. They are going to say things in front of you, and they are going to try to get you to engage based on their crosstalk. You ignore that, you say nothing, and you let me handle it. And that's exactly what you should do. And then there'll be a meeting later on with that attorney, and you can lay out what happened, and then he can interface with the prosecutors and the police. That's the way things are supposed to go. This was a really good cross-examination by counsel for Hannah Reed here, in that it brought out all of these sort of subtle psychological compulsions that were at work when Hannah was asked to sign that Miranda document and when she was then later interviewed and asked questions. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, all those things we ask you to do. Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate all you new folks who have subscribed. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And come back here tomorrow and catch me down at the beach. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.